If you're sick and tired of actually feeling like crap and you want to learn how to actually maneuver your negative emotions that you most likely encounter on a daily basis, then get your notebooks out, grab a drink of your choice, and settle in, because this is going to be one of the most in-depth videos yet that I do, and it's going to be all about emotions and dealing with them and things like that. And there's going to be a ton of applicable advice that you can begin applying right after you're done this video. So if you stick through the whole thing, trust me, you're going to have something that you can actually use right after the video is done. Okay, guys? So a little overview of what we're going to cover specifically, because emotions is a big topic. It's just to give you guys a heads up of what's to come. We're going to cover everything, right? It's going to be coming from where emotions come from, common misconceptions about them, how to identify emotions with pointers that I'm going to be giving you guys for recognizing different emotions and what to do when you recognize them, the importance of self-awareness when mental dieting, the power of the benefits of positive emotions, along with simple practices you can actually use right away, like I mentioned, and how emotions play a role regarding everyone as you pushed out and what you reflect and experience from people around you and in your world, right? And I'm also going to give you guys pointers on how to actually use your negative emotions, because a lot of you guys don't realize your negative emotions, they're actually a built-in cheat code that you can actually use to, in other words, avalanche your momentum in a positive way. So aside from that, all of that, I should say, you're also going to learn how to deal with overwhelming emotions. And I know a lot of you guys deal with that. So when I say overwhelming, I mean, it feels like you can't eat, you don't want to do things. It's just stressing you out big time, and kind of what to do and some strategies that you can implement pretty much right away as well to kind of fix that. We're also going to wrap it up with a simple exercise that I talk about with my clients a lot, but I've also shared it, I believe, a video in the past. And this exercise is going to be how to change your beliefs. It's going to be a very simple, fast exercise that we'll do together. And it's going to be all about just changing core limiting beliefs, which will then change the reflections that you experience. In other words, manifestations. So I hope you guys are ready and excited for this video, as I am too. And as you already know, I'm Michael from embodydestate.com. If you need any coaching, you already know where to go. All I ask is if there's any value in this video, you hit that like button so it can give value to other people the same way it helped you. And with that being said, let's just start. So first things first, right? Where do emotions come from? And that's the biggest question, right? So many of us are always wondering, where do emotions come from, right? Do they just happen to us? Which is something a lot of people think. But there's actually a deeper reason, right? So I want you guys to realize that emotions are actually a byproduct of a belief first. And without the belief, you wouldn't have an emotion, period, right? We know this. I've talked about this all the time. Seth talks about this through Jane Roberts, which channeled Seth. Neville Goddard talks about this. All the greats talk about this. Doesn't matter who it is. Joseph Murphy, Emmett Fox. You know, you go back to, doesn't matter what philosophy you go into. Anyone that teaches the law at that level, they're going to tell you the same thing, right? You're not going to have an emotion unless there's a belief that's underlying it, right? So to get into more detail of what I mean by all of this, it's a little more, I don't want to say complicated, because it's really not complicated, but there's a quote I want to share with you guys, and it's a quote from Seth directly, and it kind of might put things into perspective for you. And the quote goes that your emotions and your imagination both follow your belief. When the belief vanishes, then the same emotional context is no longer entertained, and your imagination turns in other directions. Beliefs automatically, remember that, guys, that beliefs automatically mobilize your emotional and imaginative powers, right? So it's like you have a belief first, and then it mobilizes. In other words, it charges up, it causes you to move, and it gives you that, whether it's the feeling of the wish fulfilled or something positive, which then is going to spark your imagination, or it's going to be fear, right? And most of the time, a lot of people, especially if you don't know the basics of how the universe works, you're going to be feeling fear a lot at the beginning until you get a better understanding of how things work, right? So either direction, you can actually choose. It's your choice, which we're going to get into in the future parts of this video. So stay tuned, by the way, because we're going to put this all together. This is going to be one of those videos where if you just miss like a little piece, it might not make sense if you fast forward, okay? So I'm so excited. You can even see it, that I can't even talk, right? Because of how excited I am to get this out. But anyways, when you realize that your beliefs are what shape everything, right? Your beliefs are what's going to spawn your thoughts. It's what's going to spawn your reactions. It's what's going to cause you to, or as Bob Proctor would say, paradigm, right? Bob Proctor was famous for using that word paradigm because he says your paradigm is what controls your actions. And in other words, yeah, what you believe about yourself, that's going to control what you're going to do, right? It's going to control how much money you're going to make, what your relationships are going to look like, so on and so on. Whatever it is, you name it, right? And whatever you believe about yourself, whatever your paradigm is, then guess what's going to happen? It's going to be your experience, right? So when Seth is telling you that your beliefs mobilize your emotional and imaginative powers, and then you know that you can change your beliefs, which we're going to do through the exercise at the end of this video, then you realize, wait a minute, I'm in full control. What's there to be afraid of, right? So just remember that, guys, okay? And there's some common misconceptions about, in other words, what emotions are, right? I have so many clients come to me, and even just people that leave comments, and they say things like, oh, they just happen to me. I don't consciously choose to feel this way. It just happens to me, right? And that's not really true. On a deeper or higher level, right? You're consenting to it. You're just not aware of it. But you have to agree to anything in order to feel its result, right? So if you're feeling negative in any form, you've consented to whatever beliefs would allow you to feel negative. Same thing, if I was to tell you, imagine the moment that you want the most to happen with your desire, whether it's love or money, whatever, and imagine being in the moment that you just receive it. What do you think that would feel like and look like? And then when you start feeling that positivity, right, you start feeling the emotions that come with that belief, it's the belief first that caused the emotion. And that's where a lot of people get screwed up. They don't even realize that. And you can always choose what you believe. And that's something that I always kind of show clients that I work with on how to do that choosing, because it's so simple, but we overlook it, right? And another misconception is emotions don't matter, right? And let me tell you something, they do. And anyone that tells you emotions don't matter when you're manifesting, I'm telling you, run far away, because there's a good chance they haven't read books, right? Certain books from the greatest minds to ever teach this stuff. And I personally don't like studying people that can't really give me value, that aren't really well studied themselves, right? And that's why I tell you guys, stick to the books. Don't stick to people that don't study. And when you realize that feelings do play a big role, emotions specifically, it's the thing that, how do they not matter, right? What you believe in is like the thing that shapes everything. So if your emotions are telling you what you're believing in, then don't you think that's like a built-in cheat code? So you understand, oh, wait a minute, I'm feeling this emotion and it's not what I want to experience. So therefore, I must be believing in X, Y, Z. So let's look at this through the eyes of God and so on. And we're going to put it all together, so don't worry. But that's just to give you an example of how logically you should be looking at things, right? And a lot of people say that they also can't escape a bad feeling or emotion. And I get it. And I believe that they believe that's true. But I'm going to tell you guys, and I'm going to show you guys that that's actually not true. So don't worry if that is something that you fall under the category of, okay, guys? So on to the next piece, right? We're going to cover, I guess you can call it identifying your emotions, right? Because that's really what it is. We're just going to show you guys how to identify your emotions and what to do, right? Some techniques for recognizing different emotions or what state you're in. In other words, being aware of your awareness, right? So, it's like for me personally, when I'm trying to recognize what I'm feeling in the moment so I can buckle down and really get to the core of, okay, what direction should I be headed? Because before I make any step internally, I first analyze myself and I get to the point where I'm like, okay, so what am I feeling now? And what should I be observing versus reacting to? And all these things are things that I personally always do before I begin my journey on consciously manifesting anything. So that being said, I always just sit down, right? I sit down and I ask myself, what am I feeling? And I really make sure I get to that point. And when I think to myself, what am I feeling? And I start asking myself these questions, it's going to hit you in your head that you're going to start thinking, okay, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling maybe fearful that this thing won't happen or this thing will happen. And it's something you don't want it to be, right? And all you really do is you should be sitting with yourself and allowing yourself to really analyze yourself in a non-judgmental way and more of like an observer type of way, right? From that perspective of, I'm just going to see what's going on and see what my body's reacting to. And then when you start realizing, okay, I'm anxious, I got a knot in my stomach, I feel this way, I feel that way, you start realizing, okay, I'm anxious, so that must mean that I'm believing in something that's making me anxious. And that's something that we're going to get to the core of later in this video, and we're going to show you how to put it all together, okay, guys? So it's so important to be able to sit down and really understand what you're feeling emotionally so you can actually get to the core and we can diagnose and change things, right, guys? So, and by the way, I forgot to tell you, like it's so important to have emotional awareness when you're mental dieting. Because like I said, think about it. Imagine if someone tells you that, no, emotions don't matter. You can feel negative emotions 24/7. And you should feel negative emotions 24/7. It'll actually help you. Like imagine if someone tells you that, right? It's like, okay, if emotions show you what you're believing in, and what state you dwell in the most becomes your experience, and what you believe becomes your experience, then logically, does it not make sense that you're just going to keep manifesting horrible stuff, right? So therefore, being aware of what you're aware of and what you're feeling is always important. So check in with yourself. Don't be afraid to be like, wait, what am I feeling? Am I good? Okay, I'm good. Let's move on. Boom. Or if you realize, wait a minute, I'm anxious, I'm worrying about my SP or my money situation, whatever it is, then catch yourself and recognize, wait a minute, I'm just believing in an aspect of reality, but that's not how reality actually has to be. And you start calming yourself down with little things like this. So, a little reminder that I kind of want to give you guys as well is we're going to be talking about, coming up very soon, next up is going to be how to deal with your emotions, right? And this is the part that a lot of you guys pretty much are watching this video for. And it's not going to be the next thing right away, but it's going to be shortly after the next thing. And when you guys realize that dealing with your emotions, and there's certain exercises you can do, you start realizing I don't have to be afraid anymore. And you start recognizing, okay, wait a second. I can just simply understand that I'm only feeling this way because I'm believing in things about reality, but it doesn't have to be this way. And then when you start reassuring yourself through putting yourself in the awareness of the creator, of source, of God, or whatever you want to call it, and you start looking at your problems from that perspective, you're going to realize it's not that scary. You're going to realize whatever you're believing in is silly. And when you look at things through the eyes of the law, which we're going to get into, it doesn't make sense. And it's pretty much your body's way of saying, hey, like, you're not supposed to be feeling this way. You feel as you don't want this, then hey, let's set the alarms and let's start changing. Let's change how we feel. And let's change what we're believing so we can feel better. And therefore we get positive experiences. Okay, guys? So just remember that. And one thing I want to actually touch on too before I get to the next point is, there's a lot of power in positive emotions. And Seth has mentioned this himself in their teachings as well, right? Neville Goddard talks about this too, but there's also in his earlier work, he talks about other things as well. So it kind of confuses some people where they think emotion doesn't matter when they read earlier parts of Neville. But then when you read like the in-between, you start noticing he starts telling you things like, okay, if you start focusing on whatever it may be, right? The wish fulfilled in whatever form that is to you, whether it's feeling loved by your person, where you finally got them back and you just go to the end. You forget how scary the middle is and you just go straight to the end. And same thing with money, right? You finally are making that $20,000 a month, $30,000 a month, $40,000 a month, whatever it may be that you want, right? And you start thinking, okay, what if I was making that for the last 3 months in a row? And then you really start embodying that. In that moment, you're going to start feeling emotions that are positive. And Seth talks about how positive and pretty much creative actually accelerate your results being reflected into your 3D reality. And that's what manifestation is, right? It's just you reflecting it. It's life happening through you. And there's a little time delay, of course, between your beliefs changing and everything catching up. But I'm telling you, the more you practice returning to beliefs that serve you, you're going to be experiencing more positive emotions. And I'm telling you, when you experience more positive emotions consistently, I swear, I promise you, I say this from experience, your mental diet gets easier each day that passes to the point that it becomes automatic very soon. And when I say soon, I don't mean 30 days, 8 weeks. I mean within days, guys, days. And when you realize, okay, this is not that hard. It's just in other words, it's just making the right choices time and time again, right? Then you realize, okay, wait, I don't have to be afraid, and I can just make the conscious choice to identify with what I can't see yet, because that is what showing faith is. That is what faith is. It's faith in the unseen. It's believing in the unseen. You trust it more than you trust the scary 3D, that although it seems to be the present moment and it's real, I promise you it's not, guys, okay? So, those are some benefits of kind of cultivating the positive emotions, right? Because when you return to positive beliefs, you experience the positivity that comes with that. And if you know that it accelerates things, you can then use that information to placebo yourself. Because if you believe in that and it's now making you feel better, knowing, wait a minute, every time I feel loved by SP, there's a chance that I get closer to them every time to get the result. Oh my God, I should be doing this all the time. And you're going to start feeling good. I don't care that my bank account isn't showing what I want it to be. You'll realize I don't care, because what I do in here and what I believe in the most in here, like inside myself, has to be pushed out eventually in the future experience. It just looks like that because we view time as linear, but trust me, everything is already created now. And that's a whole different story for a whole different day, but it's true, guys, okay? And, just remember, it's all about making the right choices. It's not about being afraid or upset or trying to fight against your emotions or scary feelings and trying to ignore negative thoughts. No, it's about understanding who you are as a creator, what your reason for being here is. It's about understanding that you can have literally anything you want. And the only thing stopping you is you. It's just you choosing to not believe it, that you have it. I don't mean in the sense of like, you have to believe that you have it in your 3D now. It's you have to believe that you have it, period. And with the understanding that, yes, you don't see it, you realize it's going to come, then you understand it makes no sense for me to then return to the negative and then be mad that it doesn't reflect in time. It makes no sense. So just remember that, guys, okay? So the next thing I kind of want to talk about as well is how dominant emotions reflect, right? And more importantly, using them to our advantage regarding everyone is you pushed out, which is a concept that Neville Goddard made very famous. And I'm going to give you guys some pointers on using your negative emotions. And this is the part that's really going to help you guys big time. So how dominant emotions pretty much reflect, right? And what I mean by that is, okay, dominant emotion. So if you're experiencing a dominant emotion, and that means that you're returning to a state, obviously, consistently. And we all know, what does Neville say about changing your beliefs? He tells you that if you wish to change your belief, you have to return to a state consistently. And the more frequent you return to that state, right? Keyword frequent, meaning how consistently you return to that state, then the more or quicker you fuse with those beliefs that are part of that state. Because remember, as Neville says, a state of consciousness or a state is just a set of beliefs. So therefore, if he's telling you to return to a new set of beliefs, and by doing that, you're going to fuse with them, and beliefs are what unlock emotion, then technically are positive emotions not going to benefit you? Especially now that you know that Seth even told you that positive emotions actually reflect faster than destructive ones, the ones that don't benefit you, and that it's made that way because that's the way Source, God, universe made Earth, this training ground that we're in. Then you realize, oh my God, we have so many things rigged for us in our favors, but we are so easy and quick to focus on the negative that it seems the other way around. But I'm telling you guys, I've had results come within days, sometimes within the same day, but I truly, truly, truly live by the law. And I've also had months and months where I waste my own time because I go back and forth. I'm not ready to forget, which is what forgiveness is. And instead, I waste my own time, right? I've had all these experiences, right? I'm always a student. I tell people all the time, like, I'm not a master here. I'm not, I'm going to be a student till I die, just as you will, right? Anyone who thinks that they're a master or calls themselves a master at this, they're a fool, right? I just don't. We're all students of this game, and we're here to learn. And, I'm not here to BS you guys. I just want you guys to live your best life. So that's how I want you to look at things, right? It's that simple when you realize that your emotions actually do play an important role, right? And think about it. If you return to, let's say, positive emotions all the time, which means you're returning to positive beliefs. So you're returning to the state of the wish fulfilled, which then allows you to feel grateful, thankful, happy, giddy, whatever it may be, right? And then guess what's going to happen? You're going to experience situations where you're going to have people reflect being happy with you, giddy, right? That give you experiences to be grateful and things like this. And people are going to start playing their role. And same thing, if you start feeling loved, you're going to get experiences that prove to you that you're loved because that's what you keep returning to. That's what you say you are by believing in it. And same thing with the negative, right? So then this is the part where it's like how to use the negative. So when you want to use the negative emotions to your benefit, the best thing that you guys can do, what I mentioned earlier, right, in one of the earlier parts of this video, where it's about you self-analyze, right? It's emotional awareness. I want you guys practicing getting into the awareness of what state you're in throughout the day randomly, right? Ask yourself, just like, for example, going, like I tell clients, when you go from the couch to your fridge, however many steps it is, there's going to be a moment, right? Like for me, if I'm manifesting, let's say, whatever, money or love, it doesn't matter. So let's say I'm manifesting someone. Of course, when I want someone, they're on my head 24/7 because I don't want to be in a relationship with someone unless I love them and I want to pretty much grow old with them, right? I don't date and hope for things, right? I just know, like, if I'm going to date someone, it's going to be because I'm okay growing old with them and dying with them, right? So it's like when I have that type of love for someone, they're on my head 24/7. So if I go to the kitchen from my couch, I'm going to be thinking of them most likely at least once in the whatever 20 steps it takes or however long. And if that's the case, then in that moment, let's say I catch myself having a negative feeling about this SP, right? Like something to do with anxiety. So right away I recognize, okay, I'm thinking of her, but I have anxiety. So in that moment, what do some people do commonly? They tell me, oh, I just fight my thoughts, or I run away from them and I try not to entertain them, but they just keep on coming and blah, blah, blah. And that's not how you should be living, guys. Instead, it's like, okay, I'm nervous about this. Like, I recognize I'm anxious. I'm having a negative emotion. I'm in a bad state. Okay, cool. So what I do is I recognize, okay, what am I anxious about? because I recognize in that moment, me being anxious is I view it as my higher self just telling me, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Like, I'm giving you like a nudge, like, hurry up, wake up. And when I view it like that, I realize, okay, so where am I supposed to be? Of course, I would rather be holding their hand. I'd rather be traveling the world with them, spoiling them, surprising them, buying them things, and really making plans to show them that I care, and just putting effort into the relationship. And that's just what I would do as a partner, right? So, of course, my job is to then realize, okay, that's the things I want to be doing. So why am I feeling anxious, though? I'm believing in something, whatever that thing is. Let's just say I believe that, that I won't get that person, and that's what's making me anxious. In that moment, I literally recognize that all I have to do is go to the end and understand that my actual end result is already created. It's already existing. And therefore, I'm only feeling bad and negative because I'm believing in what's already created, but I'm believing in the negative instead of what's created that's positive. So I'm still believing in the wish fulfilled, but I'm doing it for the negative. And when I realize, wait a minute, I just got to swap that. I just got to change it and realize, wait, it's so silly to believe in the wish fulfilled for the bad when the equally good is just as authentic and is just as real and existing, just like everything, right? We all know that everything is existing all at once. It's all here. Creation is finished, right? And that's why it's so important to realize, wait a minute, if I'm feeling bad, it's because I don't want to experience that thing. So go to the opposite of what you want to experience. Go to the opposite of your fears and start remembering, wait a second, that is actually real too, just as the scary thing is real. And I can choose to identify with either one. And if I am the creator, if I am God, and I am in human flesh, and I am in this vessel, and I get to control everything in my personal reality based on my beliefs, which is in control because I am in control of my conscious mind, which means I'm in control of what I believe, then logically, right? And that's why I love using logic. It makes no freaking sense to sit there and to keep being anxious. And when you realize and you look at your problems through that lens of logic, it's very hard to go back to feeling like that because you realize it's really silly, right? And it's so simple to just look at the silliness of what you're believing in and to then dissolve it because you realize how illogical and how silly it is, right? And that's really it. It's like when I notice that I have negative emotion, I understand it's because I want to go elsewhere. So when I catch negative emotion, I get to the core of it. And the next step that I'm going to show you guys, right? The final thing that we're going to do together before we end this video is going to be the exercise to change beliefs. And we're going to get into that soon. And when we do that, that's exactly what I do all the time. I change that belief and then I move on with my life. But I understand in order for me to change that belief, I have to do the process, which I'm going to get into. And I have to look at things through a specific lens because that lens allows me to understand that nothing is permanent and that I'm only believing in one piece of reality that is possible, but I'm choosing to ignore the good part, which is just as valid. Okay, guys? So another thing I want to show you guys, it's about the importance of not really sticking to the negative story, I guess, for lack of a better word. I was trying to figure out a better way to say it, but I guess that's the only way to say it. It's just, there's that importance that you guys need to place as well as not sinking and returning back. Sorry about that. I just got a message as you pushed out. That plays a role in how people are going to react to you. And going back to the old story is going to bring up negative emotions, and negative emotions, if consistent, and you have such conviction in them compared to the positive, compared to the beneficial beliefs, guess what's going to be your experience, right? So just remember, it's all about what you're consistently returning to. That also means a story, because when you go to different beliefs, you're obviously entertaining a different story. So whatever your consistent state is, that is going to be what plays a role. And every state has its own emotions in it. So whatever you do is just make sure that the state you're returning to is always going to be the state you wish to experience. If you're experiencing emotions consistently throughout your day, ask yourself, is this an emotion I would like to experience as a physical experience? Like, for example, if it was to manifest as a physical experience, you wouldn't know what it is, but it has to match how you feel. Do you want that to happen? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then right away, I want you guys to apply the exercise that we're going to get into, guys, okay? So before I get into that exercise, there's something that I tell people all the time, and it's something as well that I feel you guys should all know regarding negative emotions and feeling bad. And it almost just slipped my mind before I was going to get to the next topic, but I want you guys to really understand, like I've said before, it's truly like having a professor sitting there during an exam and you're filling in the answers wrong, and he's telling you, or she's telling you, you're doing this wrong. If you hand this in, you're going to fail. You're not going to like the results. So you go, oh, thanks. Thank you. If you didn't tell me that, I would have been so screwed. But instead, they're guiding you. So like, okay, so I'm going to put this instead. And then you realize, oh my God, I have a built-in cheat code. And that's what I mean earlier when I was talking about having a built-in cheat code. It's like, how can you fear your negative emotions if you know that they're like navigators? They're there to tell you where you should be pointing your attention and awareness at. They're telling you where your heart should be instead. It's like every time you're afraid, you should be smiling because you realize, oh my God, thank you what I don't want. And that's the important thing, guys. And so many people like overlook that. And it seems stupid and it might not seem like it's going to happen or like it's believable. But trust me, guys, you've been believing in the negative for so long and you have nothing but negativity in your life and you believe that so easily. So why can't you apply the logic and believe it for the opposite for just 30 days and see what happens? I'm telling you guys, it's so simple when you truly decide enough is enough. And until you decide that, you're going to go back and forth. So make that decision, guys, okay? Just make sure you don't align with anything you don't want to experience. Make sure you don't return to consistently, because it's okay to have bad states and to experience them. Just make sure you don't consistently make a habit of continuing to return to them, okay, guys? And, that's the thing that's super important. And when you realize that it's all about understanding what it is that you are, and then from that perspective is where you build everything, which is probably going to be a video in its whole self. Then you realize, oh my God, it's so simple to just navigate this 3D world, right? And how to deal with the 3D and stuff like that. So don't worry about what's in your face. I just want you to understand it's all about having fun. Okay, so right before we get to the final step, the exercise that we're going to do together, I just want you guys to have this little nugget that I want to share with you guys. And first things first, guys, when you're dealing with the negative emotions like we're going to get into in this next step, you first have to be aware of your state, right? I tell that to everybody. You have to be aware of your state. And when you're aware of the state you're in, that's where the work begins, right? And so, for example, like I said, I notice I'm anxious, right? So let's say I'm not anxious right now, but let's just say I'm anxious now. And I'm in the state of anxiety, right? And for me, anxiety gives me lack of appetite. I don't really feel like eating when I have anxiety. It's really hard for me to eat and I have to force myself to eat. I have a knot in my stomach as well when I have anxiety. So right away, those are my indicators of like, okay, I'm believing in something I shouldn't be, right? And that right there is now where the fun parts begin. Now I recognize, okay, here's the fun part and the part you guys have been waiting for. So, so how do you deal with it, Michael? You've been yapping so long. Tell us. So here we go, guys. So I'm going to share with you guys one of my favorite methods, and I've shared it in the past before. I do this with clients as well sometimes. And I also give them other methods from different places as well, things that I personally use myself. But this is one of the most fun for me because if you think about it, it's from Seth, by the way. And it's the three-pronged method, and it's used to change your beliefs, period. Like, this is so darn simple, and it's so fun, and it's so logical, and yet we don't do it. And then we do this method, but for the negative so consistently. And when you realize that, it's like, wait a minute, yeah, that's true. We do this for the negative, so why aren't we doing it for the positive? It's going to blow your mind, guys. So let's do this together. So this three-pronged method. And as Seth says, and here we go, he says, there are various ways of altering the belief by substituting its opposite. And I've honestly, I've read this method so much, it's already ingrained in the back of my head. But the whole quote is so funny. But anyways, there are various ways of altering the belief by substituting its opposite. One particular method is three-pronged. You generate the emotion opposite the one that arises from the belief you want to change. And you turn your imagination in the opposite direction from the one dictated by the belief. At the same time, you consciously assure yourself that the unsatisfactory belief is an idea about reality and is not an aspect of reality itself. I want you guys to really remember that. Think of that quote, just that last part. At the same time, think about that. Imagine getting out of that Rolls Royce or whatever car is your dream car. Imagine paying the bill for your family, right? I love when I'm able to provide things for my family. I enjoy it. It's nothing to do with oh, look at me, I'm fancy and I can afford everything and blah. No, it's nothing to do with that. It's I do what I do so that I can help people, and that includes help my family, right? And I love providing. I'm a provider. I've always been like that, right? So that's what I focus on when I was manifesting financial freedom and abundance. But anyways, continuing, it says, the last part says, if you're poor, you purposely pretend that you have all you need financially. You will spend your money. Imagine how you will spend your money. If you are ill, imagine playfully that you are cured. See yourself doing what you would do if you cannot communicate with others. Imagine yourself doing so easily. If you feel your days are dark and pointless, then imagine them filled with joy. Now, this may sound impractical, yet in your daily life, you use your imagination and your emotions often at the service of far less worthy beliefs. And the results are quite clear. And remind yourself, guys, and this method part is not done. We're just near the end. As it took a while for the unsatisfactory beliefs to become materialized, so it may be a time before you see physical results. But the new ideas will take growth and change your experiences as certainly as the old ones did. The process of imagining will also bring you face to face with other subsidiary ideas that may momentarily bring you up short. You may see where you held two quite conflicting ideas simultaneously and with equal vigor. And in such a case, you stalemated yourself. Think about that, guys. When you start thinking of the positive things you want to experience, you enter the wish fulfilled, right? As Seth teaches you, he wants you to generate the emotion opposite of the thing that's bothering you. So if you're anxious, let's say for me, I was anxious, right? We'll use myself as an example. So what Seth wants you to do is, I recognize I'm anxious. Okay. And now my job is to remind myself that I'm only anxious because I'm believing in an aspect of reality, but it's not how reality actually has to be, right? Yes, there are realities where that anxiousness is true in form as physical experience. There's an experience that will match that. Yes, I understand that. But I only feel this way because I'm identifying with that reality, with that thing. So when I realized that life doesn't have to be like that, there's also the good that exists. I could actually have the opposite of that scary. So now that I recognize I'm only believing that's scary, I recognize, okay, I don't have to feel that's bad anymore because I understand that I'm consenting to the scary. So let's take away my consent now. Let's take away that balloon that I tell you guys in previous videos where I tell you that, your beliefs are like, imagine being in a room that's 10 by 10, that's full of red balloons, that they're all touching the ceiling. And they have a bunch of strings attached. Each balloon has one string. But there's balloons, there's no space where there's not a balloon. So in other words, you're literally packed full of balloons. And you're holding onto these strings, which means you're holding onto multiple balloons. Some of those strings are not beneficial. They're giving you anxiety. They're giving you the opposite of what you want to experience. So we're going to let go by reminding ourselves, wait a minute, that balloon, that belief is just an aspect of reality. I don't have to believe in it. Yes, it's true in other realities, but it doesn't have to stay true and be true for mine always, right? And when I realize, okay, I can let go of that. Why? Because I am the creator. I came here to experience life and to learn that my beliefs shape reality. And I understand that I control everything, and whatever I'm consistent with in returning to on the inside and believing is going to be my experience. So yes, it makes no sense to continue to believe in this bad belief. In other words, holding this balloon. And instead, it makes more sense to let go of it. And let's grab a balloon that I want to experience. A balloon that will give me a life that matches the thing I want to experience. And right then and there, I generate the opposite. So what's the opposite of that bad balloon I was holding? So if it's anxiety, so what's the opposite of anxiety? Anxiety for me, so let's say I think, oh, what if I don't have my person? What if I'm not good enough? And that's giving me anxiety. Okay, number one, I'm only believing that I'm not good enough in that moment, and that's why I feel bad. And that's not true unless I believe it. And yes, it is true in many realities, but it's not true about all realities. So I calm myself like that, and I recognize, okay, that is true. So if I can choose to select to feel good or bad, and I can choose what experiences I'm going to have a week from now or days from now or a month from now, by what I'm selecting to return to starting today and tomorrow and so on, then okay, so what do I want? Okay, I want to be holding hands with her. I want to be on a date with her. I want to be traveling the world and, have her sleeping on me while we're on an airplane and her head on my chest and whatever. I want those experiences. Okay, great. So I'm going to start believing in those. I'm going to think of those experiences, and then I'm going to go straight to what those experiences would make me feel like if I was in them right now. And to me, that makes me feel loved, and it makes me feel grateful, and it makes me feel like all my problems are solved. And in that moment, I just applied the three-pronged method because I reassured myself that those beliefs make no sense and that I'm only feeling that way because I'm believing in an aspect of reality, but it's not how reality has to be, right? And then that calms me down, and it puts me into this power of, wait a minute, I'm the selector. So it makes no sense to select that. And then I start focusing, okay, so let's focus on what I do want. And I focus on the opposite emotion. The reason Seth tells you to focus on the emotion, in my belief, this is just my opinion, but it's because as Neville teaches and as Seth teaches, especially in the quote I gave you guys much earlier in the video, that pretty much your imagination follows your beliefs. How your beliefs mobilize your imagination and your emotions, like mentioned, right? So if that's true, then what's the point of just doing anything else but going straight to the emotion you want to experience if your emotion is what, in other words, spawns everything, right? Your belief spawns the emotion, and then the thoughts follow, right? So it's belief, and then emotions, thoughts, emotions. So it's like the belief has to unlock everything. Let's go to the beliefs of what we want to experience, and then let's focus on those emotions. Like for me, I love using emotion. I know so many people say emotion isn't the most important thing. Neville even mentioned in The Feeling is a Secret how he doesn't mean emotion, but he threw away a lot of his older things, such as the golden rule and whatever else, things that he realized are just human superstition. But he talks about often how actually emotion plays a massive role and how you should really be focusing on emotion. He even tells you to use emotion in some of his exercises. He tells you to be grateful. What do you think that is? That's an emotion, right? He's telling you these for a reason, for the same thing, right? So just remember that, guys. And all I want from you guys, if you learned anything in this video, it helped you in any form, just remember, subscribe and hit that like button so I can help other people and I can reach a greater audience and help change the world together, guys. So now you guys know exactly what to do when you deal with negative emotions. I hope this video was a wonderful help, and you already know where to reach me if you need coaching. I love you all very much, and take care.